Hello, my friends, and happy Thursday. It's a beautiful day, or at least it was a beautiful day today. Beautiful sunshine, and it actually feels like spring. And today we are going to create a bracelet that has so much color and is made with natural gemstones, and we're going to put them in little frames like the works of art that they are. They're truly nature's work of art, and it's kind of fun to show them off with our little frames. So these are my three colorways, and the name of the bracelet is Frame Gems, and we have Sedona and Lake Country. We do have a beautiful region here in Wisconsin, and it is called Lake Country because there's so many lakes. So we have Lake Country right here, and then we have beach stones. And I just had so much fun designing these, and it's just really great fun to draw inspiration from the stones themselves, and just kind of go from there and find whatever we feel complements our main choice of stone or our focal point stones. And this is what it looks like. I think, really seeing it on the wrist, you can envision what it would look like on your wrist. I think this turned out so fun. I'm very pleased. In fact, one of these eventually is going to join my arm party.
Ellen says, hi, Irina and everyone.
Hi, Ellen, and thanks for joining us.
Kim K says, happy Thursday to everyone and sends tulips.
Hi, Kim, and happy Thursday. Thank you so much for the tulips. I love tulips. In fact, we have some tulips. Probably, I would say in a couple of weeks, they'll be blooming. They're not even close yet, although our daffodils are blooming, and that is exciting.
Fonda says, good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday.
Hi, Fonda, and happy Thursday to you, my friend.
Angela says, good evening.
Hello, Angela. And I'm so glad you joined us. Okay, ladies, so this is a very simple project, very just kind of straightforward. There's just a little bit of knotting, but there is one little trick, or maybe just a couple of little tricks that I'm going to show you today. And we are going to start, you know what? We're going to start by getting the string, which I forgot to grab. It's on my desk. I'm asking Tony to grab my string. It looks like this one. Sorry about that. But in the meantime, ladies, I am going to show you a few features of this bracelet. So we are going to be working with Ceylon. And I know that some of you will have seen this technique where I use Ceylon with these wire guardians, which of course, normally everybody thinks of wire guardians being just for soft flex wire. And we are actually going to use it with Ceylon, which means we're going to have to do a little extra step. So that is about to be revealed. So buckle your seatbelts, because I think this is a very exciting thing that we can do. And of course, we're also going to be making a self needle, which again, a lot of you already know all about self needles.
Fonda says, these are such cute bracelets.
Thank you so much, Fonda.
Patricia says, good evening, all.
Hi, Patricia.
Allie says, such a pretty bracelet. Made it into the store today and got some goodies before spring break is over.
Oh, yay. So glad, Allie. And I'm sorry to have missed you. Must have been when I was at lunch. Okay, ladies, so this is our stringing material. It is Ceylon that I'm working with, and it's kind of like the color of maybe burnt orange. I love colors like this, and it's going to be this bracelet in the middle, which we call Santa Fe. And so what I'm going to do to make this self needle is put a little bit of super new glue at the end of my string. And this is the Ceylon is the regular size Ceylon, which is 1/2 millimeter. I think it's 1/2 millimeter, right? In diameter. And I'm putting super new glue on either end. And the trick here is to, well, first of all, it does come out rather quickly. It's very watery. It's not really a gooey type of glue. And then immediately after applying the glue to your string, you want to remove as much as you possibly can, just using a piece of paper. And if you heard that little squeak, that's a good thing, because you know we want to remove as much as possible, and that is going to give us a little self needle at the end of the string. And we're just going to set this aside while we are working on a different step. Super new glue dries very, very quickly, so by the time we're done with this little step, it'll be nice and dry and ready for the next step. Okay, so what I just dropped, what I have right here on my finger is a wire guardian. So the reason it's called a wire guardian is because actually it was designed to use with flexible wire, such as soft flex or beadalon. And those wires are much skinnier than the Ceylon, which we're working with today. So it's going to be very difficult to fit our Ceylon into these little tubes at the ends of our wire guardian, unless we open up the sides, which is exactly what I'm about to do. So in my hand, I have a little awl. So this is, sometimes I do it with a needle stylus, sometimes I do it with an awl. Whatever you have that has some kind of a needle type attachment on at the end. It could even be just a regular pin, whatever you have handy. So I don't know if you can really see this very well, but I just opened up this little tube, just a tiny bit, and I will do the same with the remaining little tube. So there is a total of 2 of these tubes on each finding, and we have 2 wire guardians, so we're going to do the same with both pieces. And all you have to do is just open it up a tiny bit.
Pammy J says, good evening, Irina, Tony, Lauren, and all.
Hi, good evening, Pammy J. So nice to hear from you. Okay, guys, so can you guys see, did you see the 2 sides split just a tiny little bit? I don't know if it's really easy to see or not, but here's my awl, and you should be able to see a little bit of a seam right in the center, and now it's just a little bit open. So now we're going to set these aside, and I am going to cut the ends of my Ceylon so that they are, so they end at a nice sharp point, just like a needle. And if you do this, you don't need an actual needle. In fact, an actual needle would be a little bit of a hindrance for this project. And so now I'm going to take my seal-on and go through one of the sides that I opened up. And you can see I'm pushing it through. And now I will go around the wire guardian and back into the remaining tube on the wire guardian.
Pammy J is wondering if the wire guardians come in different sizes.
Pammy J, yes, they actually do. There's going to be a very slight variation depending on the manufacturer. I have noticed that there's a little bit of a variation. However, I've never seen it sold by size. So it's kind of like, I don't think that they actually mean them to be different sizes. I just think that they're going to vary a little bit based on the manufacturer. So now that I have my seal-on through both sides of the wire guardian, I'm going to pinch each side, because now that I've strung my string through those little tubes, I no longer need them to be slightly open. So I just close them just using my chain nose pliers. And now that we've done that, we're also going to bring the two sides of the wire guardian a little bit closer together and tie an overhand knot. So maybe I'll just pull this a little further out just so that it's easy to tie. So I'm tying an overhand knot with both ends of my seal-on. And we want the knot fairly close to the wire guardian, but it's good to have just a little bit of a gap because I'm going to use a crimp cover or a knot cover. So actually it's kind of nice to just have a little bit of a gap like I do right there, because that is going to be where my knot cover fits. And now that I have tied a knot, I am again going to use my super glue glue and glue the knot. So whenever I glue the knot, especially using super glue, I like to put a little glue up here on the string that's eventually going to be cut off, and just let the glue run down the string towards the knot. And this way I know I'm not over gluing the knot. So the reason it's not a great thing to over glue the knot is because if you have too much glue, the glue will run down your working string and make it stiff and brittle. And we don't want to do that because, of course, we don't want our bracelet to break in that spot. So I'm just giving it a few seconds, just waiting for the glue to dry, and it looks like it's dry already. So we will cut off the end of the string, and this is a good time to cover the knot with our crimp cover. So this is what a crimp cover looks like. It looks like an open round bead, so you can see the opening, it's right towards the camera. And I'm going to take our crimp cover and put it right over the knot. So this is a 4mm crimp cover that I'm using. And so usually I use either 3mm or 4mm crimp covers. And this time I'm using a 4mm because this knot is kind of a larger knot, because we're using two strings, right? And so first I just squeeze the two sides together a little bit until I only have the gap right in the center, not on the sides. And then I will use my flat nose pliers to just squeeze each side separately. And I do it very, very gently. So please do not use all your might to do the squeezing. So you just do one side, the other side, and then you can barely tell that there is a seam. It just looks like a nice little round bead. You can see that, right?
Trudy says, hello, everyone. Had a hard time getting on here.
Hi, Trudy. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to get on here because we would have missed you otherwise. Okay, ladies. So we are working on the Santa Fe colorway, and this is like the brightest one and the most colorful of the three. And of course, it's inspired by the beautiful colors of the Southwest, which very often in the Southwestern jewelry we will see turquoise and various shades of orange and red, and sometimes purples as well. So I have all of the above. And we're going to start with one of my little amethyst faceted 4mm beads. And we're going to string that onto our seal-on and tie a knot. So while you're holding onto the seal-on like this, you know, if you can just kind of tug on it a little bit to straighten it, push the bead all the way to the crimp cover, which at this point just looks like a nice round bead. And now we're going to start knotting. So these are just regular overhand knots, and this is how I do it. I tie the string, or I wrap the string rather, around 2 fingers like this, and then I will grab the string like this and push it through, making a knot. And instead of guiding it towards the bead with an awl or some other tool, I like just keeping the knot right at the bead. And this way I don't need an extra tool, and it's just so very, very quickly, so very easy and quick. And so I just knotted and made the knot as tight as I can. And now I'm going to pick up one of these little turquoise looking beads. These are actually not turquoise, but turquoise dyed magnesite, which makes this bracelet much more affordable, but looks exactly like turquoise. And there's my little magnesite. And now we're going to string the frame onto our seal-on. So since the frame is there to hold the gemstone, this is how we're going to approach it. We're going to string the gemstone, in this case it's red jasper, onto the string. And now we're ready to go through the other side of the frame. So this is very, very simple. And once you go through, we're just going to pick up one more of those little turquoise beads. And there we go. So we have the frame gem, we have the turquoise bead on the other side. And now we're going to tie another knot. And I'm just going to repeat this pattern one more time just to be sure that we're all on the same page.
Pammy J is wondering what size gemstones you're working with.
Thank you so much for asking, Pammy J. So the red jasper, or at least the red jasper in this colorway, you know what, I'll go through the other colorways separately. So the red jasper, it's faceted and it's 6mm, maybe 6.5 or so. And then the amethyst is 4mm, and the turquoise dyed magnesite is 3x2, so it's really quite small. And so now I have my amethyst on the string again, and again we're going to tie a knot. And this is my technique for tying the knot. So I put my thumb through the loop so that I can grab the string with my thumb and pointer finger. And then as I'm tightening the loop never gets away from the bead, and I keep it right there and make it smaller and smaller. And it just ends up right next to the bead. And now I'm going to string another turquoise bead. And now we're back to the part where we have the frame. And again, you just go through just one side of the frame. You add your 6mm bead. And now we're ready to go through the other side of the frame. And finally, you string the rondelle.
Allie says all three colorways are great. Can wear them with so many things. The Southwest is my fave.
Thank you so much, Allie. You know, I have to say, probably the Southwest is my fave as well because it goes with so many pieces of jewelry that I wear.
That's the Santa Fe.
It's the Santa Fe, yes.
And Allie's wondering if the frames are pewter.
Yes, Allie, thank you for asking. I believe they are. Actually, I'm not sure if they're pewter. Yes, they are pewter. I just remembered they are indeed pewter. But you know, I was going to say, I really do love the other two colorways as well. This one is just so very watery, and it's like swimming in a beautiful lake. So this is Lake Country, and this one is Angelite. So the light green is the Angelite, and then we have dyed jade. And finally, sodalite. The rondelle is sodalite. So they all, even though there's just a tiny little bit of variation between the shapes, but they all have a larger round, a smaller round, and a rondelle. So the sodalite is the rondelle, and then we have the dyed jade, which is literally, it looks exactly like aqua. And finally, we have, this one is really fun as well. This is probably the most neutral of the three. And if you love linen, and if you love creams and beiges and whites, this is such a fun one. So there's just a little bit of that blue. It's kind of like almost a sodalite blue or a sapphire blue. And then we have a little bit of amazonite. And then we have another Tibetan agate, and this one is white and cream. So it's probably the most subtle one that I have in this little group. Okay, ladies, so we're going to continue. So we're just going to continue with this pattern. It's literally all the same. The only knots are between the 4mm amethyst and the little turquoise beads. That's it. They're nowhere else. And through the magic of Facebook Live, guess what? It is just about finished. So once you have knotted, and of course you will have a little bit of extra beads and components so that you can size it to your own wrist. Plus, there's also a little extender chain. And the beauty of working with an extender chain is that you don't actually have to know the exact size you're making, whether you're making it for yourself or maybe for somebody else, especially for somebody else. We have this little extender chain that will add approximately an inch to our bracelet. So that's kind of like our little insurance policy. And as long as you can come within an inch of guessing the person's size, we're golden. Okay, ladies, so it's not quite time for this little extender chain just yet. So in the meantime, we have to finish this other side, and the other side is very similar to the first, but the way we tie the knot is going to differ just a tiny little bit. So just as before, we are going to go through the wire guardian with our self needle. So you can see I'm going through one side of the wire guardian, and now I'm going to go through the other side of the wire guardian. I don't know if I opened it enough. Yeah, barely, but just enough. You can always open it just a little more if you want to, because, you know, I'm really having to work at pulling it through. And so, oh, and you know what? The first side I actually had open just a little too much. So this is a very subtle kind of step. So this is what we'll do. We will close the one side a little bit, because if it's too open, your string will just kind of sneak out of that little tube. So let's try this again, shall we? And so I guess it's nice to keep it just a little bit snug. And so now I'm through the first tube, and let's go through the second tube. This should not be an issue. And now we're going to work our way down to the beads. And we're going to want to leave approximately 4 to 5 millimeters between the last bead and your wire guardian component. So now I'm going to squeeze the two sides just a little bit, just to close that gap that I opened with my awl. And also I like to squeeze this a little bit just to form a tighter loop. And now we're ready to tie a knot. So whereas before we were able to tie an overhand knot, on this one it doesn't work the same exact way. So this knot, I don't know what this knot is called, but it's really more like a little loop rather than a knot. And I like to do this twice because this one is not quite as secure, and I'm really relying so much more on gluing it, which is what I'm about to do. So it's like forming a couple of little loops. If anybody knows what this is called, I feel like I almost know what it's called, but I just can't recall. All right, ladies, so now we're going to put a little bit of our super new glue. Again, it goes on the string that's about to get cut off. And you saw how I just guided it towards the knot. So this is just going to take a couple of seconds. We're going to give it a little time to dry before we cut off all of the excess string. In the meantime, I'm going to track down my knot cover, also known as crimp cover, and just set it down right here. And also I'm going to need a couple of jump rings, because that's what I'm going to be using to connect my lobster clasp as well as my extender chain. Okay, and I think we're just about ready to snip off the excess wire. And oh, and I almost forgot to put the cover on my glue. Don't forget to put the cover on your glue, ladies, if you don't want it to dry. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut right next to the knot because the glue is nice and dry. Love working with this glue. And now we're going to put the cover, the knot cover, right on the knot. And I like to have the opening towards me so that I can see exactly what I'm doing. And again, I'm just going to start closing the knot cover nice and slowly so that I can really control it. And once I'm down to just this little gap, I will switch to my flat nose pliers. I could have just closed it with my flat nose pliers also, but it's just, you know, what I happened to pick up, which was the chain nose pliers. So whatever you're more comfortable with, you can just use that tool. And as you saw, I did one side and I'm doing the other side separately.
Pammy J is wondering if it's a half hitch knot.
Yes, it is a half hitch knot. Thank you so much, Pammy J. You are awesome. It's like it was right at the tip of my tongue and I'm like, I know this knot, but I just couldn't recall. So yay, good job you. All right, ladies, so I just closed the seam, okay? So you can just barely see, and it should look like a nice little round bead again. And we are going to use our jump rings to connect to the clasp as well as the extender chain using the chain nose pliers and the flat nose pliers, and I always use them so that they're at a 90-degree angle to one another. This is going to be the easiest way to do it. You see how there's a 90-degree angle, and I just open it just like that. It just opens like a little door, and we're going to close it the same exact way. So as I opened it, I made the diameter of the jump ring just a little bit smaller so that there's a tiny bit of overlap between the two sides. So if I give it a little pinch like this, did you see that click? So that means we closed it really nicely. There's no gap between the two sides of the jump ring. And we will do the same on the remaining side. So this is five links of the chain, which adds up to about an inch. If you don't want an inch, oops, and I just dropped it. If you don't want a full inch, you can always cut off a couple of links like I have done on my samples. But this sample, I think I'm just going to leave as is with 5 links. And again, I overlapped the two sides of the jump ring, and we're going to close it just by giving it a nice pinch, and it may need to be aligned a little bit better, which is what I'm doing with my chain nose and my flat nose pliers. So now all we have left to do is just make our little bauble right here. You see those 3 little turquoise beads. And I love these little baubles at the end of our bracelets. So I'm using a pretty fine ball pin, as you can see. And we're going to make a 90-degree angle, leaving just a tiny little bit of space between the bead and the pliers. And that little space we leave so that we can wrap right into it as we are making a wrap loop. So here we go. I just made a loop. And by the way, if anybody is just starting out, I have a more detailed video on how to make wrapped loops. So you can always find that if you feel you really want it to be further broken down into steps. So now I made my loop. I have put the chain right into the loop, and now I'm going to simply wrap the wire from my ball pin right around this. And guess what? Through the magic of Facebook Live, I have 2 more of these. So we're going to do this 2 more times. But first, actually, you know what? We're just going to trim this wire before we add the other 2. And we're going to pinch the end of the wire so that it doesn't hurt anyone. And I have already made the loops on the remaining 2 little baubles, so you can see that. So the loops are already made, but they're open. They have not yet been wrapped because we are going to put them right through the link, or right on the link, I should say. And then we're going to wrap. And to wrap these, we're just holding on to each one with our chain nose pliers, just like that. And it is very, very simple. So I do like making organically wrapped loops, especially when I use these very dainty little ball pins. So an organically wrapped loop is a loop where you first go from the loop to the bead, like what I'm doing right now. So we're going from the loop to the bead. And now that I have filled all that space between the loop and the bead, I'm just going to go in the opposite direction. So I'm literally turning directions and wrapping over my first set of coils. So that's it. That's really all of it. That's how you make these organic little loops. And I'm going to cut off the excess wire. And then of course I'm going to go back and pinch the ends in so that we're not making a weapon. Because you know, those little pieces of wire, if you do not pinch them in, they can be very, very pokey. So this last part is very important. And that's it. We just made a bracelet. And because we have that little extender chain, we have so much leeway as far as the sizing. So this is what it looks like. Ta-da! What do you guys think? Was that easy? And tell me if you can do it. I think you can do it. And of course, you're going to find these in the Eclectica Etsy shop. And they're going to be in the featured on Facebook section. So in the meantime, now that we are all done with our project for today, wow, it was so quick. It's like we blinked and we just missed it, right? If you would have, I hope you guys didn't blink. And so now I just have some announcements. Of course, I would love to do a little preview for next week. Well, actually, before we get to next week, first I'm doing a preview for tomorrow. And tomorrow...
What stones are in the other two bracelets?
Oh, I thought we talked about the stones. Well, we can always talk about the stones yet again. So, you know, I love natural gemstones. And so in the Santa Fe bracelet, we have red jasper, we have amethyst, and turquoise dyed magnesite. And it's, I have to tell you, you would not even know that it's not turquoise. I would not have known that it's not. And then we have Lake Country with our beautiful angelite. That's the largest bead that's in the frame. And then we have dyed jade, and this is aqua dyed jade. It's really, really pretty. And the sodalite. And finally, we have beach stones, and I hope you can see. I know it's a bit more subtle, so I don't know if the camera picks up just how fun this is. So this is Tibetan agate, which, you know, I'm always a huge fan of Tibetan agate. The way that it's dyed is so that there's always some type of like a different color, or sometimes it's very subtle, like in the 4mm beads. So it is Tibetan agate that's dyed kind of a sapphire blue, and a little bit of cream, and also kind of a reddish brown. I just love these beads. And then we have the other Tibetan agate that's just like a cream color. Cream with white, maybe off-white. And finally, there's a little Amazonite rondelle in this one as well. So I think now we're ready to talk about tomorrow's shopping event. So tomorrow, Friday, we're going to have a super, super fun shopping event. I am going to have so many magnificent blue gemstones. I'm kind of focusing on the blues. So we are going to have apatite, kyanite, lapis. We're also going to have some copper edged beads, just like the beads in my two bracelets right here. You guys have been asking me to have the copper edged beads in smaller groups, and we're doing it. So tomorrow is going to be a super, super fun event. Plus, I'm bringing back some of the pieces that we sold out of last week. So some of you did not get to order some of the beads, components, pendants. So I'm bringing back some of the greatest hits that sold out. So it's going to be a really, really fun video.
Trudy says sharp looking. That's in regards to the bracelet.
Oh, thank you so much, Trudy.
Kim K says so cute, loving the dangles.
Thank you so much. It kind of finishes it off, right? I love all the little dangles. I just think it's such a fun little finishing touch.
Joan says thank you, love these bracelets.
Thank you so much, Joan. Do you have a favorite? All right, ladies. So let's see. But wait, there's more. We have more to talk about. So next Thursday, which is April 4th, can you believe that next Thursday, it's already April? In fact, I believe it's this Monday that's April, right? April 1st. So start thinking about those fun pranks that you're going to pull on your loved ones. And Tony is giving me this look, and I'm getting scared.
That's approval.
I don't even know what he's going to do. So you guys, keep me in your prayers. So, so this is going to be next Thursday, April 4th. Central Standard Time, of course, on my jewelry design page, and I'm calling it Gems in Bloom necklace. So I found this awesome little replica of a pod, and I am just so very, very excited about this. And if this is something that looks a little familiar to you, let me know if this looks familiar. One of my favorite necklaces in the whole world that I wear all the time, actually, it's based on that one. So that was the inspiration, and you guys have probably seen it like a schmillion times. So anyway, ladies, this is what we're doing next Thursday. But wait, there's more. Also, I'd like to remind you guys that we are doing a little, like a very small kind of a boutique show in Michigan. So we're doing a bead show in Michigan, and it's a small show. It's very much curated. There are only 7 vendors, including us. And the Bead Society, the Michigan Bead Society is going to be there as well. So if you want to get involved with the Bead Society, it's going to be a super fun event.
That's the Great Lakes Beadworkers Guild?
Yes, the Great Lakes Beadworkers Guild. It's very long to say, which is why I just refer to them as the Michigan Bead Society. You know what I mean. And so that's going to be the 4th and 5th of May. So that's like about 5 weeks from now. And if you're in Michigan or maybe somewhere close, come on down and visit us when we do the show. In the meantime, you can always go to the event for the Michigan show, and the information to that is going to be in the comments, as well as the description of the video. And this is going to be in Novi, Michigan. if that helps.
At the Sheridan.
At the Sheridan, yes. So it's really a very, very nice venue, and I'm super excited. And you know what I'm super, super excited by? They're actually letting us bring our dog to the venue. So yes, if you stop by, you meet Tiki as well. That's just the bonus, you know. Okay, and that I believe is all of the announcements. So I really hope to see you tomorrow for our really fun shopping event. So lots of blue gemstones, kyanite and apatite, lapis, some really fun surprises, and I will see you there. In the meantime, thank you so much for your wonderful comments, and keep those suggestions coming. If you want to see anything, if you have dreamed about exploring a technique or exploring a component, let me know. I would love to hear from you.
Kim Case says, thank you so much for sharing.
Yay, thank you so much, Kim, and thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful and creative evening.